All right, today we're diving into a really powerful idea. This argument that energy independence isn't just about the climate. No, it's something much bigger. It's being framed as maybe the most critical security mission, even a civilizational one, for every single nation this century.
So, let's kick things off with a question that, I think we've all felt in our guts. Have you ever been at the gas station, just watching the price tick up, and you know it's because of some conflict happening halfway around the world? Right? That feeling, that vulnerability. That's exactly the problem we're getting into today.
And here's a number that really puts it into perspective. 76%. I mean, just let that sink in. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, that's how much of the world's entire petroleum supply had to pass through these really vulnerable maritime choke points. 76%. It's a staggering figure, and it just shows you how incredibly fragile our whole global setup really is.
And this leads us right into our first big idea here, what the source calls our energy addiction. For more than 100 years, we've basically built our entire global prosperity on a system that's, it's directly wired into these super fragile supply lines and political chaos happening thousands of miles away. The way this monograph puts it, this isn't some random accident. It's a fundamental design flaw in the whole system. Think about it. When the fuel that powers literally everything in your country comes from just a handful of places on the map, what happens when there's a problem there? A war, sanctions, a blockade, it doesn't matter. The shockwave from that one spot, it hits everyone, everywhere.
Okay, so this vulnerability, it builds to the absolute core argument here. And it's that this isn't just about economics, prices at the pump. It goes way deeper. This is fundamentally about a nation's ability to actually control its own destiny.
And there's a quote from the author Ryan Baidya that just nails it. He says, "A nation that cannot secure the energy required cannot be fully sovereign in practice, even if it is sovereign in law." I mean, what good is being sovereign on paper if you can't even power your hospitals or keep your food supply chain running without being totally dependent on some unstable region far away? It's a huge structural weakness.
Okay, this next idea is absolutely critical to understanding the whole argument. It's this concept of a transfer of insecurity, right? What does that mean? It means a conflict in one corner of the globe doesn't just stay put. Oh no. It gets exported. It gets shipped out to the rest of the world as higher gas prices, more expensive fertilizer for farmers, and eventually higher food prices for all of us, even in countries that had zero to do with the original fight.
So, if that's the problem, what's the way out? Well, this is where the monograph introduces a whole new way of thinking about it, a new organizing principle. They call it energy freedom.
So let's really break down what that means. The goal is what's called maximum feasible energy sovereignty. Now, the two most important words there are feasible and reasonably. This isn't some rigid all-or-nothing ideology. It's about being practical. The goal is simply to build as much resilience and self-reliance as you possibly can, based on your country's unique situation.
Now, it's super important to be clear about what this isn't. We're not talking about autarky, total economic isolation. The goal isn't to build a wall around your country and cut yourself off from everyone. Not at all. It's about building up your resilience by having more options, by diversifying, so that if one supply line gets cut, you're not totally sunk. It's all about strategic control, not isolation.
Okay, so this is where the theory gets super practical and, honestly, pretty exciting. The argument is that this big goal, it's actually within reach for almost every single country on the planet. Why? Because the pathways to get there, they're literally everywhere.
And the core insight here is, it's beautiful in how simple it is. Remember that fundamental design flaw we talked about? How fossil fuels are all concentrated in just a few places? Well, the solution is baked right into the nature of renewables. Sunlight, wind, rivers, geothermal heat. These things are spread out all over the world. They're just so much more democratically distributed. And in practice, this means there's no single recipe, right? There are tons of different paths. For sunny places like India or Mexico, the path is obviously solar dominant. If you're a coastal nation like the UK or Vietnam, you lean into wind power. Places like Kenya or Iceland, they've got incredible geothermal potential. Heck, even tiny island nations can swap out crazy expensive diesel for their own solar and battery grids. The point is, every single geography has an answer.
And look, don't get it twisted. This shift is already happening, and it is happening fast. Check out this number, 90%. In 2024, that was the share of all new power capacity added around the world that came from renewables. 90. The momentum here is it's undeniable.
All right, so let's talk about the ripple effects, because achieving this kind of energy sovereignty, it does so much more than just, keep the lights on. The benefits can literally transform entire societies.
And the payoffs here are just huge. For one, it takes away a major incentive for wars fought over resources. It also closes the door on a lot of the corruption that festers around these shady backroom fuel deals. And on a human level, it could finally help us tackle energy poverty for the more than 660 million people who still don't have electricity. Plus, it massively improves health by getting rid of all that indoor air pollution from burning dirty fuels. I mean, it's a profound, profound shift.
And on top of all of that, it is a massive economic engine. Get this, by 2023, the renewable energy sector had already created something like 16.2 million jobs around the world. So this isn't just an energy transition. You can think of it as a massive global project of economic reconstruction.
But that brings up a really interesting, very modern question, right? In an age where we're all worried about AI automating jobs away, what does the future of work actually look like in this new world?
Well, the monograph makes this really fascinating point. Think about it. You can't get an AI to pour the concrete for a new dam, right? Or to climb up on a roof and install a solar panel. The actual physical work of building, installing, and then maintaining all this new energy infrastructure, it creates millions of real hands-on jobs. And those jobs are naturally resistant to being automated away. In a future that feels pretty uncertain, that kind of job creation is a powerful anchor for social stability.
And this is why the author frames the whole thing with this powerful quote: "The next great freedom must be energy freedom." It really elevates the whole conversation, doesn't it? It stops being just a technical engineering project and becomes about securing a fundamental human freedom for everyone who comes after us.
So when you boil it all down, the core argument is this: the path away from global conflict isn't just about diplomacy and treaties. It's about infrastructure. It's about changing the physical, nuts and bolts systems that power our world. Because when you redesign that infrastructure, you redesign the very incentives that have been leading to conflict and corruption for decades.
And that really leaves us with one final and I think pretty critical question to ponder. Looking ahead, the choice laid out here seems pretty stark. Do we stick with an energy system that is basically designed for perpetual crisis, or do we finally start building one that's designed for stability? The answer we choose is really going to define the rest of this century.